Unfortunately, I was.
Give me the rundown on that.
Yes, I was invited to a party at Roman's, and Cass and I were both invited. I was invited by Wojtek. Cass had been invited by Roman. We were invited as a couple by both of them. Tom and John were in Los Angeles at the time. I invited neither of them. Perhaps we should use that machine. If you could just give me an idea of the questions you're going to ask me. I'd like you to know that Del Negro invited John DeToro for that party, not me. And I made a point of Del Negro.
Oh.
And I made a specific point of criticizing Del and suggesting to Del that John not be there. Ben Feathers will confirm that for you, because Ben and I had to go up in the parking lot and straighten it out. John got a little juiced. And everybody at the party knew each other, of course. Del invited John because he assumed that John and I were friends and that I might want John to be there. I deliberately didn't invite John. You know what those parties are like. I don't aid in the investigation by describing the party. You already know how the parties are. I like John. And John didn't know anyone there, and those people are very cliquish. And generosity to strangers is not a watermark of these people, generally. And for rightly so. Their public is a stranger, and they're usually mobbed. And so that John had a few drinks, which he doesn't do. Here's a rule. And he was at this party for 2 hours, and I don't believe anybody except me said anything to him, and he felt obviously useless, and he had arrived there, and he had no way to leave. And I could see him becoming worked up. I was in another room talking to some people. When I came back, somebody ran in and grabbed me and said, "The toilet's out in the parking lot, there's been some trouble." And Ben Crothers and I went out into the parking lot. And where John was arguing with the parking lot attendants, I believe that they had asked him, some peculiar thing that they felt his behavior was kind of strange, and they were trying to really look after him, as attendants usually do to people who go to Hollywood parties. If a star gets notice those people. And that's what first drew my attention to the house. But it was a very expensive home, and there was a lot of very lovely landscaping up there. I didn't notice the house in the back the first few times I was there. I'm miffed. I'd love to help you. Mm-hmm. I liked Wojtek. I don't think Wojtek would willingly have hurt me or anyone else. And I don't think there's a possibility in the world that Wojtek would have stood by and let anybody hurt Sharon. He might have let Jay handle his own case, but in the final analysis he wouldn't let anybody do him serious harm.
What about his relationship with Gibby?
I think his relationship with Gibby, I think Mr. Folger should and will sue and investigate everything and everyone. Gibby Folger was not a drug addict. Gibby Folger, I repeat, was not a drug addict, and thought it was a big deal, and she was being incredibly mischievous to take a poke off somebody else who's doing it. Gibby was a girl of breeding. She was a lady of quality. I was very, very, very fond of Gibby. She was a lovely girl. As is Sharon. Was Sharon. They are really nice people. Do you understand? They're really, really fine people. It's all a lot of nonsense and crap in the newspapers about those girls. Neither of those girls were whores, to my knowledge. For sure, Gibby wasn't. I didn't know Sharon all that well, but I knew Gibby. I was exposed to her a lot. She was a nice girl. She loved Wojtek, and that was obvious. She wanted him to marry her. I believe he had a wife or something in Poland. He used to talk about it when he drank a lot of vodka. Wojtek was violently anti-Nazi. I made the mistake one time of saying that, in my opinion, Asiatic communism was more subhuman than, was in my opinion the worst thing that has ever had, the worst political system in the world. And Wojtek became hysterical with me. That was the argument we had the night that I had taken the drugs, apparently. He gave me all those drugs. That's why he was mad at me, because he was saying that the Nazis were the worst. Apparently he had some bitter experiences at their hands. And he wouldn't marry Gibby on account of she was wealthy. I believe...
But he would let her keep him.
I don't believe she was keeping him. I believe Roman was. And while it may be expedient for Roman to deny it now, Wojtek has told me so. Wojtek indicated to me that his friend Roman was helping him. I never saw Wojtek do any work. I never knew what Wojtek told me he was having problems with his working paper. So I assume the kind of help was material aid. You can't live in Hollywood in a $200,000 home and drive a car and have clothes and buy drugs and have parties and have catering services and carry on in general in an in-depth social scene without money. It can't be done. I couldn't afford it.
How did you support yourself while you were there?
I had some money when I arrived there, and it was very little, and I was very prudent with it. And I spent a total of maybe $500-600 on drugs, and that was my major expenditure. And all the time I was there, I had $10,000, and in the end, the last few months, I didn't even have enough money to pay for taking the garbage away from Cass's house. Cass was having some problems with the IRS, and I footed the bills there. And if you ask Ben or Judy Carruthers, they'll tell you so.
How about Pick? How did he support himself?
I don't have the faintest idea. I believe when Pick came back from Europe, he had some money. Pick has always been nefarious to me in his financial dealings. When I first met Pick, he was strung out. I cleaned him up. I guess you know that. The next time I met Pick, he was strung out. I cleaned him up. I made him cut all his hair off. One time I brought him to Canada, put him on a train. And then he went to Europe. His hair was short, he was fine. He went away and got his leg operated on. It was a big success. He came back. I met with his musician friends, got strung out again. Once again, I threw him out of the house. He was hanging around with Cass. I sure you know all about that, too. I love Cass. She was a nice girl. We had a lot of common. She had the same values as I did. Unfortunately, somebody convinced her that I had killed those people, that I had snuck back into the country and done it. And in a moment of super paranoia concerning her daughter Owen, and rightfully so, because every mother's first love is to her child, she called me and told me that she had told the police a whole bunch of things about me. She apologized. She told me that she really believed I did it, and at the time that convinced her, John Phillips had told her that the police were coming up there to arrest her for withholding information, and that she'd be an accessory to murder or something. You ask her, call her when you get back, she'll tell you that's what she told me. Was it you that Cass spoke with?
No, I didn't talk to him.
But you're familiar with the testimony that I talked about?
Yeah, I've frankly not talked to Cass at all.
Everybody in California seems to want a degree in spymanship. Everybody, a lot of those people want to. I was willing to play, to play the ass for them, and within the confines of the social scene that I was socializing in while Cass was out of the country. Wojtek led a purely social life. He had no... The thought of Wojtek being a drug dealer is as alien as the thought of me homesteading on the moon. First of all, he had great difficulty speaking English. He was so thoroughly out of touch with that kind of thing that he couldn't have sold any drugs, and he wouldn't have, I don't believe he really knew where to go and buy any. In fact, it's a mystery to me who was his connection. And I can tell you right now, it wasn't me. Because we didn't have any smoke at Cass's house, because Owen was there, Cass has just been divorced, and no trouble. And anybody at any time can walk right into 7708 Woodrow Wilson Drive and tear it top to bottom. There's never any drugs there. I know this, I guess you've heard. Cass used to, when Pick was around, there were drugs around. And I put a stop to that. That's the truth. I really did.
When did you say the last time you saw Pick?
Last time I saw Pick was several months ago. Pick and Wojtek were close. Pick and I were close, and finally I couldn't make Pick anymore. And Wojtek tried to help. Wojtek was not a bad fellow. Anybody who represents Wojtek as being a bad fellow has something to gain by it or something to hide and is doing that. Wojtek was really motivated by the highest things. Wojtek wasn't strung out when I saw him last, or any time through the time that I saw him. I really wasn't. Pick was in bad shape. Wojtek took him in, gave him a home, and cleaned him up. It's most difficult to put up with people when they're kicky. It's hard for a fellow to put up with himself.
Yeah. Do you and Pick have any beef with John Phillips over Michelle?
Michelle's a curva. I've never had anything to do with Michelle. I've never kissed Michelle. I've never held her hand, nor would I. Michelle Phillips is the third unprincipled lady. I have no interest in the Phillipses. I know John Phillips to be a braggart. I know John Phillips to be the father figure of the Mamas and the Papas. And I know when Cass had her trouble at Las Vegas, I heard John Phillips tell some people that Cass was strung out on drugs, which is patently false. Dave Victorson at Caesar's Palace wouldn't have an entertainer in there that was strung out on drugs. You understand? I mean, he really wouldn't. Cass's throat was bleeding. John Phillips came in and said, "See, I told you couldn't make it on your own," etc., etc. I told him to shut up. Michelle said something. I told her to shut up. He jumped up and gave me a push. Lon, who was in the room at the time, who was Cass's musical arranger, assisted John out the door. That's exactly what happened that time. I've been to John Phillips' house on not more than 10 occasions, always with Cass. I have never had any dealings with John Phillips concerning his wife. And I couldn't be less interested. I know that John Phillips used to settle all his arguments with Cass by hitting her. When I came around, that ended. I told John Phillips that if he had anybody to hit, he could hit me. I'm not bitter about John Phillips. I do, however, know about what I have been told from people in California that John Phillips has laid the blame squarely at my feet. And I would suggest this in reality, from what I've read in the paper. I believe that if you go to John Phillips, this machine, and ask him to repeat all the testimony that he's given to you and to Polanski, that you'll end up arresting him for mischief. Or you'll have the grounds to, at least. Because John, have you been to John's house?
No.
He lives in a very expensive house, which he earned. I believe that basically he's a fine guy.
What's he doing now, arranging?
I don't know what he's doing. I know that his overhead is enormous and the residuals to the Mamas and the Papas are off very badly. And I know he's in heavy, I know his financial situation is not quite what he would like it to be. I believe he did all right with Lou Adler with the Monterey Pop Festival thing. That's hearsay. All I know is that he's desperate to make any kind of thing, and when Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones was found dead, John and Michelle were going to have a big wake at their house. Anybody that knew Brian was aghast. And they were called up by a number of people and told not to do that, but no one would go. No one, no one of the people. John would use anything and has and will use anything to aggrandize himself or to secure for himself a position in the Hollywood community because he's attempting. And it's a very difficult thing to make the transition from a rock and roller to a regular of the Hollywood establishment. It's a difficult task for a man to do. It's highly competitive, and I believe I believe his effort was less in the interest of assisting police with the crime, and more in the interest of endearing himself to the bereaved.
I wonder if we could stop for a cup of coffee, I want to call in and see if there's anything else.